I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. It's February 10th on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, the 10th day of Black History Month. On this day, Ronald H. Brown, 1989, was elected the chairman of the Democratic Party, becoming the first African American to lead a major U.S. political party. He later served as the first Black U.S. Secretary of Commerce. Leontine Price, in 1927, the internationally acclaimed opera singer, was born on this day in Laurel, Mississippi. She was one of the first African Americans to become a leading artist in the Metropolitan Opera. Roberta Flack, in 1937, the legendary singer, was born today in Asheville, North Carolina. Known for its hits like Killing Me Softly with his song, she's only one of two artists to win the Grammy for Record of the Year in consecutive years, 1973 and 1974. And Grace Towns Hamilton, in 1907, was born today. She later became the first African-American woman elected to the Georgia General Assembly. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We continue to commemorate Black History Month on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And today, our very special guest is none other than our regular contributor, Liz King. Liz recently served as Education Equity Senior Program Director for the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, a position she's held from 2015 to 2025. In this role, Ms. King led the organization's work to ensure that all students are fully included in welcoming schools from early childhood through post-secondary education that prepared them for college, careers, life, and the full exercise of their social, political, and economic rights. Throughout her tenure at the Leadership Conference, King coordinated the coalition's work to advance equal opportunity in education and represented the civil and human rights community's position and perspectives on education policy topics, media, including testimony before the U.S. Department of Education and during the course of legislative negotiations. Liz, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thank you, Congressman. It's always great to be here. Looking forward to the conversation.
And I'm particularly honored that you brought our very special guest, Barrett Holmes Pidner, back. Barrett's a philosopher, author, educator, journalist, and founder of the Sustainable Culture Club. In 2021, he published the celebrated book, The Crime Without a Name, Ethnocide and the Erasure of Culture in America, which NPR named one of the top books of the year. In it, he describes how ethnocide, the destruction of a people's culture, while keeping the people, has shaped American life since the transatlantic slave trade. Barrett Holmes Pidner, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks for having me back.
Barrett, you have a fairly fascinating piece on fascism. Can you share with us your thoughts about and the context within which you write in this particular article?
Yeah, so when I was on here before, I was talking about my piece on how what's happening in Minnesota connects to the Fugitive Slave Act. And so this piece regarding fascism is kind of a continuation, where I think our society has been talking more and more about fascism, but what we do is we always identify the symptoms. No one really thinks hard about what causes fascism, like what happens. And if you're waiting for the symptoms, you're going to kind of do it after the fact. Like someone has to rise to the power of being a fascist authoritarian for us to wake up. And when that happens, it's too late. So in this piece, I talk about what I believe the symptoms are, the causes are. And that cause, for me, is when a culture, a collective, a community of people arbitrarily make some people from that community into the other. And that trauma of ripping people from the community and making them the other is the trauma that comes with fascism. And then the symptoms that we all are aware of are the devices that authoritarians use to justify that separation. But to add to this, what makes us unique in the American context, and I've been writing about this since about 2015, is that racial division was a foundational part of the United States. So African Americans, we were always positioned to be the other. And so when violence inflicts us, Americans are less likely to view that as fascism because we are already the other. The trauma of taking someone from the other, from the community and making them the other doesn't occur. But now when they're targeting immigrants and people that are coming to the United States to become part of the community, or white Americans are being targeted, now that feels that trauma that comes with fascism. And so that's what the piece is about.
You know, I was reading a really interesting post the other day on social media, not that it's completely my new news source, but it said that racism is what happens to Black people, but when it happens to white people, it's called fascism. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yes, 100%, because the racial division that America made is what creates racism. And that's why when the trauma, the violence that's inflicted upon African Americans, it's felt as something that's unique to the African American community. It's not part of like America's common culture. It's something over there. So that collective trauma that comes with fascism is not felt in the United States. But when it happens to white Americans, because they're part of the common people, as Americans would say, they feel that trauma, the trauma of being arbitrarily extricated from the community and made into an other that can be dehumanized and beaten up and killed in public. That's quite traumatic, and that feels like fascism.
Liz?
Yeah, I think there's just so much here when we're thinking about the uniquely American ways of engaging in state violence and creating racial hierarchies, thinking about hundreds of years in developing these systems, devaluing some lives over others. Part of what makes me this all makes me think of is the reaction to the phrase Black Lives Matter, and the idea that just asserting the value of Black life was viewed as inherently threatening to the system of white supremacy. And I think there's a lot here, and we got to find ways to live together. Looking forward to the conversation.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is Liz King, and Liz is our regular contributor. Our very special guest in this hour is Barrett Holmes Bittner, a philosopher, author, educator, and journalist, and founder of the Sustainable Culture Lab. I'm so grateful that both of them are joining us this Black History Month on February 10th, where some extraordinary things happened. We are going to be talking about this issue right here, fascism, on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More when we come back on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
What's up? What's up? What's up? We got to laugh the pain away.
Hey, KBLA delegation, happy Black History Month. Around here, we celebrate our culture, our community, and our contributions daily. But this year, as we observe the 100th anniversary of Black History Month celebrations, we're excited about our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, honoring comedy greats. On Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum in downtown LA, we're toasting D.L. Hughley, Melanie Camacho, Earthquake, Munell, Dion Cole, and Martin Lawrence with a surprise guest appearance. A limited number of individual tickets for the luncheon remain, so now would be a good time to head to KBLA1580.com to secure one for yourself. That's KBLA1580.com. A little laughter goes a long way, especially in times like these. So come, join us for our annual KBLA Talk 1580 Black History Month Luncheon, Thursday, February 26th at the Grammy Museum. Again, tickets are available right now at KBLA1580.com.
Well, I hang around my boy, and he's been married for 6 years. Videotaped his wedding day, never watched it. Now and every day he watch it every day, but he watch it in reverse. Because he said he loves seeing himself take that ring back off of that finger. Walking back down that aisle, just waving at her ugly mother down the church, getting back in the limo, back at the bachelor party. Look how happy I was.
KBLA Talk 1580 thanks LA City Council members Curran D. Price Jr. and Heather Hutt for being the presenting sponsors at this year's Black History Month Luncheon, honoring excellence, resilience, and achievement. We're KBLA Talk 1580.
It's game day. Are your moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keeping you from the action? Skyrizi, risankizumab Riza, could help you get back to the game. Skyrizi is proven to help people feel significant symptom relief, achieve remission, and visibly improve damage of the intestinal lining. Skyrizi is a prescription injection medicine for adults. Don't use if allergic to Skyrizi. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is committed to self-care and community well-being. Walk Good LA was formed in June 2020, inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement and the beginning stages of the COVID-19 pandemic. What began as a few minutes of breath work and yoga meditation before protests against police brutality turned into a safe space for the community to heal in hard times. The immensely positive response from the community transformed the momentum into a movement. Today, Walk Good LA is a Black and brown-led community wellness organization based in Los Angeles. They provide spaces for healing through community yoga classes, guided meditations, hikes, run clubs, and other activations throughout Los Angeles that attract hundreds of members weekly. With the help of Propel and Michael Los Angeles, called the Walk Good Yard. To join their mailing list and connect with healing spaces, please visit walkgoodla.org. That's walkgoodla.org. Or find them on Instagram at walkgoodla. This is a community call to action, a community call to healing from KBLA Talk 1580.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me.
Welcome to the J-Lunch Club. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to our show.
KBLA.
Our very special guest in this hour is Barrett Holmes Pittner on with Liz King. Barrett writes, How to Understand and Defeat American Fascism in The Reconstructionist, his article on Substack. Our society mistakenly focuses on the symptoms and not the causes of fascism. And then he writes, when people describe something as fascist, they are normally describing the symptoms and attributes of fascism. We know what fascism looks like and feels like, but we are less clear on what the causes of fascism are. Barrett, take your time and walk us through the causes.
So I think we're looking at like the birth of fascism with Italy in the 1920s. You have to think about what happened to Italy in the 1800s, where in the 1800s, Italy was not a unified nation. There were Italian-speaking people on that peninsula, but they had different kingdoms and monarchies and whatnot. But they had the Risorgimento that was a concerted effort to unite all the Italian people on that peninsula into one unified, society. And so the Kingdom of Italy was created in, I believe, 1861. And so now you look at it, where Italy has this endeavor from 1861 all the way into the 20th century, where they're trying to exist as a common people and not like a peninsula with a bunch of infighting. And then Mussolini shows up and he's implementing an authoritarian regime, and anybody that opposes him just became the other. The trauma of becoming the other is real once you spent a good 60 years trying to build a community. Like that is that is quite traumatic. And I think that is what differentiates fascism from, authoritarianism or tyranny, where we're just talking about like power dynamics. But fascism has that trauma of becoming an other in a group where you thought you were part of a community. And if you look at Germany, I think Germany is the same thing. Like Otto von Bismarck was working to unite Germanic people into a German state. And he did that in the late 1800s. So we're talking about like 1870s. And then Germany becomes a state. Next thing you know, Hitler shows up in the 1930s. And that division where he just started making another, they had a bit more of a philosophy than the Italians did. So there was like very white supremacists. And so the other wasn't just the opposition as the political party, but anybody who was non-Aryan. So this was Jews, Africans, Slavs, and those Germanic Jews, they felt they're part of the culture, part of the community, part of the common people. And that trauma of making them the other, engaging in the Holocaust, is a trauma that not just Jewish people felt, but like Germany as a society is still trying to remedy this trauma that they created, where they stopped viewing their neighbors as their neighbors, and their neighbors became an other, and now they were justified in doing and treating them however they wanted, and even tried to exterminate them. That right there is a key component of what I feel makes fascism different from authoritarianism and just tyranny and whatnot. And when we're looking at the United States, Like I think the quote you mentioned, the social media post, African Americans, we were never intended to be part of, the common people in the United States. That was like Eurocentric white idea. And so when trauma is inflicted upon us, that's an expression of racism. But like the society doesn't feel that trauma the same. And I think once we start as a society acknowledging how like horrific that normalized othering is, and once we recognize that African Americans have been part of the American people from the beginning, now you start having to realize that fascist attributes were part of America from inception. And that's a really significant thing to think about. I'd say one last thing to add on to what Liz said is like the Black Lives Matter movement is a really key feature, because that was a reminder that Black people shouldn't be considered the other anymore. It wasn't this is fascism. It was, we need to remind people that Black lives matter, and they shouldn't matter any less. We should view them as part of the American culture, common people. And that was a reminder of like that normalized othering that we're trying to counter.
So I do have this question for Liz, and maybe she can expound upon it for us. In the American context, it seems that the checks and balances of both the centralization of our system and the decentralization of our system would not inherently lend itself to the idea of being either a fascist or an authoritarian state. And by that, I mean, we have a central government, but of course the 10th Amendment gives certain powers not written in the Constitution to the states. So the federal government theoretically cannot cross into that space either legally or spiritually. And yet, Liz, it seems as though the checks and balances that would normally retard the idea of a cult-like group think, it just simply has failed here. It's just something that is not working here, and therefore the spirit energy is pervasive, separate and apart from the idea of the structure of our government itself.
Yeah, I think what we have seen in the last 48 hours is that Bad Bunny has done more to reassert the constitutional rights of Americans than the United States Congress has in the last year. And what we have seen, exactly to Barrett's point about the other, we have seen the way in which Bad Bunny showed up in the Super Bowl, in all of the diversity, in all of the glory that was that performance, was an assertion of the America we should be. And what we have not been hearing from the United States Congress is a commitment to that America, a commitment to an America where all constitutional rights are respected. We're seeing occasional leadership from individuals in Congress. We're seeing occasional leadership from governors, but we are seeing, to your point, Congressman, a wholesale failure by our government to stand up to the abuses of our government. I was having a conversation with someone the other day about this phenomenon of calling 911 on ice and how profoundly confused people are. We don't have a framework for what do you do when the government is doing the attacking, except we do have a framework because we have had anti-Black state violence for centuries. And so there have always existed communities and places where invoking the government was not a way to protect your rights. It was only a way to further your exploitation. And so what I'm hoping we see is that Congress and the courts and our state governments, our state legislatures, our state executives will borrow from the courage and ingenuity of Bad Bunny and realize their constitutional role and responsibility in this moment.
Is there a responsibility in this moment? The states are not stepping up. I read this morning that the president is now filed through the Department of Justice a lawsuit against 24 states seeking their non-public voter rolls, which the right to vote has been protected by the states since the Bill of Rights were added to the Constitution. It just seems like this line is now being crossed by the Department of Justice itself, Liz.
Absolutely. I mean, this Department of Injustice is seeking primarily to prevent people from voting, right? I mean, this is the playbook. This is what you do. And it's important to remember the reason they are working so hard to stop voting is because if people voted, they would lose power. This is not a meaningfully democratic movement. I mean, again, we see in their criticism of Bad Bunny. Who is this guy? Who supports this guy? I mean, he's one of the most famous artists in the world, and they have no idea who he is because the people they're talking to is such a small segment of the overall population. I think the threat to voting rights that we are seeing now, that we will see in the midterms, is showing up in all kinds of ways. We know that nothing scares Donald Trump more. Well, maybe the two things that scare Donald Trump the most are the prospect of a free and fair election and Bad Bunny. And what we're seeing here is this question of whether or not Congress will show up, enforce our laws, and ensure that the people are heard through free and fair elections.
Barrett?
Yeah, I agree with everything Liz is saying. I think if we're looking for where courage should come from, like Liz referenced, state sanctioned violence has been a thing that's been inflicted upon the Black community for as long as America's been America. And if we look at Reconstruction, there's clearly an era where the federal government, the role of it, the responsibility it said it had to its citizens, what the notion of right and wrong were, shifted, where they had an obligation to protect everyone's rights and voting rights and civil rights. And so the idea that we're really dealing with is what era of American democracy are people latching onto? If we're looking at, from the founding, this is going to be essentially like a constitution that is like a democratic facade that allows for like certain types of authoritarianism, because slavery is just authoritarianism. Like that's just what it is. If this idea of allowing people being authoritarians at the state level just grows to the federal level, that's not a different idea. That's just the same idea with more power. I think that's what we're seeing right now. What we really need to focus on is that what do you do with that power to make sure that people can live in a democratic society? And I think that's like the profound question that Reconstruction was trying to ask, where like the government isn't something that just kind of allows for authoritarianism or allows for people to value property over human life. It's like human life, being able to like grow, get education, pursue employment, have your rights protected. That's what was happening after the Civil War. And I think if people are going to get courage, they need to look in that era to find it, because if you're looking someplace else, you might not find it.
I want to help our listeners kind of understand the framework, at least as I'm interpreting it, with a simple example. Imagine a nation from sea to shining sea, from one ocean to the other, without a federal government, that comes to a federal agreement that the gauge of track for a train, let's just say from New York City to Los Angeles, California, a federal government has to make the determination that the same gauge of track will go through all of the states in order to tie the nation together from east to west. But imagine a system where if the federal government seeks to build a unifying system of transportation, i.e. trains from east to west, the state of Pennsylvania decides to opt out. They're just an anti-train state. And therefore, the only way to get from New York and New Jersey to Ohio is literally to walk across the state of Pennsylvania. Pennsylvanians are just not going to cooperate with the Union. And then by the time you get to Ohio, well, let's just say Ohio doesn't have a problem with trains and they don't have a problem with steel, but they decide to have a completely wider gauge of track. That is, if Pennsylvania ever comes around to the idea of having similar trains on the same gauge of track, by the time you get to Ohio, the track is so wide that the engines, from the engine all the way to the caboose, it simply would not work on Ohio tracks. And therefore, everything that you loaded in New York would have to be taken off at the Ohio border, put on a completely different train just to get it to Indiana. So you have to imagine just how disruptive, without the idea of the federal government, the system actually would be. Now, imagine this. Let's take it away from transportation for a moment and think about human rights. Let's just say that human rights in the state of New York are different than human rights in the state of Pennsylvania, which might be different than the human rights, let's just say, from Virginia around to Texas. That is, there are a free people from New York in the northern states in a certain direction west. But as you go south, each of these states make up their own rules with respect to the human rights of people. That could be healthcare. That could be education. That could be housing. That could be the right to vote. It could be equality for women. You can organize in some states into an organized union, but in other states, you cannot organize into a union. You can have a minimum wage or a livable wage in some states, but other states have a completely different system of a rush to the bottom. You see, without the idea of building a more perfect union for all Americans and a structure that allows us literally to take off from a plane in New York and have reasonable assurance that when we land in Los Angeles, we'll be landing on the same length of runway, because we need a federal government to make sure that a 747 that takes off in New York can land in Los Angeles on the same size runway that it departed from in New York. There has to be a system in place, a standard of basic human rights, regardless of race, sex, or class, that applies to every single American. And we've decided to do that through something called Building a More Perfect Union. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our analysis of American fascism when we come forward.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A status hearing is next in the Miami case where a black 17-year-old was fatally stabbed by his girlfriend. Attorney Melba Pearson, representing the family of Yakeem Lawler, is questioning why no trial date has been set more than a year later.
The defense counsel has everything that is in the prosecution's possession.
Prosecutors say 17-year-old Jahara Malik stabbed Lawler in December 2024. She claims it was an accident and has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter. A member of the San Francisco 49ers is recovering after a shooting. Black defensive lineman Keon White was shot in the ankle early Monday in downtown San Francisco and taken to a hospital. The team says he's receiving treatment and updates will be shared later. And HBCU, Tennessee State University, is hosting the 45th Annual Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture this Friday on its campus. The day-long event celebrates Black history and culture. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In the new year, make one commitment. Don't let someone else's carelessness leave you paying the price. OPO Law has been protecting Los Angeles for nearly 50 years. So if you're injured this holiday season or at any time in 2026, go to opolaw.com. In the new year, make one commitment. Don't let someone else's carelessness leave you paying the price. OPO Law has been protecting Los Angeles for nearly 50 years. So if you're injured this holiday season or at any time in 2026, go to opolaw.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
After the Lakers' 119-110 loss to Oklahoma City Monday night, LeBron said something that the Lakers organization really did not want to hear. LeBron said, "We are not a championship team." LeBron made the comment when a reporter asked him to compare the Lakers to OKC, the NBA's defending champions. There may have been added motivation for LeBron to make that statement after both teams played without their best player Monday night. OKC came to town without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, last season's NBA MVP. The Lakers didn't have Luka Doncic, the NBA's leading scorer. LeBron saw how OKC handled their injury situation much better than the Lakers. OKC had 6 more free throw attempts, made 4 more three-pointers, and outscored the Lakers bench 54-35. Maybe LeBron should have spoken up before last week's trade deadline. It's too late now for the Lakers to do anything about not being a championship team. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with the world. African Focus Incorporated is a community-based organization whose mission is to bring Africans and African Americans together, lead charitable initiatives on the motherland, and educate people from all walks of life on the beauty, legacy, and opportunity of Africa's 54 nations. And it's that time once again when African Focus is teaming up with KBLA Talk 1580 for our 8th annual African Focus Trailblazers Tour. Travel with us in 2026 when we're headed to the Southern African nations of Zambia and Botswana for a historical, cultural, and vacation tour led by me, Dominique DePrima, Cultural Ambassador for African Focus Incorporated. Enjoy luxurious accommodations, conscious fellow travelers, shopping, adventures, cultural tours, wildlife safaris, and a giant waterfall, one of the world's 7 wonders, along with a chance to be of service at an orphanage on the continent. Become an AFI trailblazer by exploring the motherland with a nonprofit organization that has members in Africa and America to help roll out the red carpet for you, and together we'll make a difference and have fun doing it. For more information, visit africanfocus.org or call 310-676-7300. That's 310-676-7300 or africanfocus.org. Whether it's stateside or exploring the diaspora, we're with you every step of the way. African Focus and KBLA Talk 1580. Come go with us.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Our very special contributor, Liz King. Prior to joining the Leadership Conference for Civil Rights, Ms. King served as Senior Policy Associate for the Education at the Children's Defense Fund, where she focused on school discipline reform and school funding equity. King's policy and advocacy career began as a legislative director for Congressman Shaka Fattah, where she advised and represented the congressman on education, healthcare, and women, children, and family policies. King's education career began as a middle school teacher in South Philadelphia, and she holds a BA in government and religion from Wesleyan University and an MS in elementary education from St. Joseph's University. Liz, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Thanks, Congressman. Loving the conversation so far.
And thank you very much for our very special guest, Barrett Holmes Pittner. Through his work, research, and advocacy, Pittner has devoted himself to combating ethnocide by developing and cultivating a sustainable, nurturing culture for society. A current focus is to center the Reconstruction era of U.S. history to better understand American society today and supply a framework for reconstructing it along the lines of Reconstructionist amendments to the U.S. Constitution. A man after my own heart. Hi, Barrett Holmes Pittner. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And again, enjoying the conversation.
Barrett, this question of the otherness, before we get to the dramatic conclusion of your piece, this otherness, everybody lives in a different county, everybody lives in a different state, everybody lives in a different city, everybody lives in some little portion or corner of the globe. This question as to whether or not we can come together as a single people to accomplish anything isn't natural to who we are. It's almost something that has to be forced. And maybe it's the economy, maybe it's the economic system itself, just out of convenience, that makes that happen. But somehow along the way, the idea of, at least in my mind, our economic system has kind of driven us past the idea that we could be fascist, because we do need each other in order to just engage in the basic operation of the society itself.
Yeah, so I guess I'd say I challenge the idea of natural, because natural in many ways invokes like an idea of passivity, where like some like force beyond us is just like dictating it for us, and that's just what we do. I do think it's natural that we just interact with the things that are around us and try to do it in the best way to like sustain living on the planet in like a sustainable and nurturing way. And you know, a great example is just kids. Like my kid is younger than Liz's kid, but if you put them in the same room, they hang out. There's nothing about them that you'd say like racially or whatever would make it so that they would want to hang out and have friends, be friends, but they can just play forever. And they're not really thinking about what makes them different. And they're not really thinking about what makes them the same. They're just seeing a person. Let's communicate in a way where maybe we can have fun and get along and just see what happens, because it's just more beneficial if we're going to be in the same room with each other to do that than do the other thing where we like determine that somebody's the other and we just choose not to be nice. So I do think if we're trying to be wise and exist in the world in a good way, you can show people how easy it is to do that and how beneficial it is. But there's no way that you're going to look at another person and not notice something about them that's different than you, that if you really thought about it, you could use that as a means for making them the other. But in the same vein, you can look at another person and find something that's similar to what you do and use that as a means for having a good conversation and having like a trusting, nurturing relationship. So it's more about like what the philosophy of your society is and how it wants to like exist in the world. And I think unfortunately our society has normalized trying to focus on some sort of difference and emphasizing that as justifying some sort of poor treatment of another person.
How to Understand and Defeat American Fascism. It's on Substack. Our Society Mistakenly Focuses on Symptoms and Not the Causes of Fascism by Barrett Holmes Pittner. Barrett has done it again. He knocked this one clearly out of the park. Liz, this is how he dramatically concludes the article. To defeat American fascism, the United States must do something it has never done before. Create a common people. Liz, how do you do that?
I mean, I think that the children point that Barrett is making, and our kids are actually friends, so that was an analogy from real life. But I think we have seen in our education system the opportunity to help children bridge lines of difference, to come together. You know, in my child's school, they learn 2 languages. And part of the reason they learn 2 languages is that everybody's better off when you know more than one language. But it also just has a way of opening up your mind and being able to see the world through different eyes. And so I think this is what we're seeing now is our education system has increasingly become committed to enabling our children to participate and be leaders in a multiracial democracy. And what we're seeing from the Trump administration is a concerted effort to roll that back, to squander that, to squash, to squelch that. We're seeing an effort by the Trump administration to take our civil rights laws and turn them upside down and use them as a justification to undermine the pursuit of diversity, equity, and inclusion in our schools. Because it really is so much about helping children, first just giving children the space to be who they are and come together, and to play on the monkey bars and to build with Legos and to be children and to draw pictures and all of that. And to build the skills and to learn and to ask hard questions and to wrestle with difficult topics and to read books about people who are different from them and the same as them. So certainly it starts with the children creating those opportunities to be on the same page. But one piece of this conversation that I really want to emphasize and bring in here is thinking about how many of our laws throughout American history have been designed to foster this type of division. Thinking specifically about housing policies that have required housing segregation. And they had to require housing segregation because in the absence of the requirement to have segregated housing, people would have been more inclined to live wherever they wanted to live in proximity to people who are different from them because it was closer to work or closer to school or it was a nicer building to live in. And so we have had laws, and Barrett talks about this a lot. You know, we think about the role of the Black codes, there have been laws that have enforced this kind of white supremacy intentionally, because if not for these laws, what we would have seen is people coming together across lines of difference. And so that gives me hope that another way is possible, that we can build this idea of an America that we deserve, in which all people's rights and dignity and human worth are respected. If we do the work, if we undo these laws, if we create new laws and new opportunities for people to come together, I think there's a lot of opportunity here, but we're resting on a really hard history of hundreds of years of intentional efforts to maintain the fiction of white supremacy and Black subjugation. And it's hard. These are hard times, but I feel that there is a different future possible.
I know I'm going to slaughter this quote, but Dr. King said something to the effect that let us never underestimate the power of laws. That while a law may not make me or force me to love my neighbor, it can keep my neighbor from lynching me. And he said, I'm very much okay with that. And so it may not have your children and Barrett's children playing together, but any law that would keep your children from being able to interact with Barrett's children is an unjust law, and we must find some room within our own space to be able to challenge unjust laws that allow us to achieve the very society that Barrett says we need to achieve to overcome fascism, and that is to arrive at the idea that we can be a common people. I mean, that we're all Americans, and within that commonness, there is a flavor. We're not just we're vegetable soup. I mean, carrots maintain their flavor, and the potatoes maintain their flavor, and the peas maintain their flavor, but there's a common tomato base that we all enjoy, but we are as unique, and we should be respected in our uniqueness. And it seems like a simple thing that Barrett is arguing that we should do, and yet in the United States we've made the simple so complex. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the J Lunch Club. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward with Liz King and Barrett Holmes Pittner. More when we come forward.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Why'd I go to the doctor? Working on the farm, my heart kept skipping a beat. I didn't think much of it, but my daughters made me get checked out. Turns out I have atrial fibrillation, which increases the risk of stroke about 5 times.
Symptoms like irregular heartbeat, heart racing, chest pain, shortness of breath, fatigue, or lightheadedness can come and go. But if it's AFib, the risk of stroke remains. If you have symptoms, contact a doctor.
I'm so glad I did.
Visit notimetowait.com. Sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb and Pfizer.
There's no championship league for small business owners, but if there was, you'd be at the top of the standings. Because going pro with Lenovo Pro means you've got the winning formation, one-on-one advice, IT solutions, and customized hardware powered by Intel Core Ultra processors help you stay ahead of the competition. Business goes pro with Lenovo Pro. Sign up for free at lenovo.com/pro.
Lenovo.
Protect yourself from Medicare card scams. Scammers may call, email, or even knock on your door claiming they need your Medicare info, asking for money or threatening to cancel your benefits. Don't fall for it. It's a scam. Remember, Medicare doesn't need to verify your information. They already have it. Medicare won't charge you for a new card and will never threaten to cancel benefits. Check your Medicare statements for suspicious charges and report scams to the California Senior Medicare Patrol at 1-855-613-7080. We're here to help.
Lena Bloom for the Bail Project. Imagine you're stuck in a jail cell and you can't afford bail and someone offers you a way out. Just plead guilty and you can go home and kiss your kids goodnight. What do you do? What thousands have. You plead guilty whether you are or not. Cash bail makes poverty a crime. That's why the Bail Project helps those who can't afford it while fighting to end cash bail. Because freedom should be free. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley. The tools to hold a meaningful conversation should not be reserved just for a privileged few. It is a skill our world desperately needs in every community, at every table. So I'm pleased to announce the Founding Members Scholarship Program for my online course, The Art of Conversation, in 4 different categories: the community builder for those who serve others, the rising voice for emerging communicators, the bridge builder for underrepresented perspectives, and the determined scholar for those facing financial hardship. If finances are the only barrier between you and this training, well, let's hurdle that barrier. We're accepting applications right now at TavisTalks.com. That's TavisTalks.com. The priority deadline is February the 10th. So visit TavisTalks.com right now and let's build this table together.
Every morning, we rise and shine, make breakfast, and brush away the night's rest. These routines help us start the day off right. Nature-Made vitamins are a simple step in that daily care regimen. Multivitamins with daily essentials, clinically studied probiotics for gut health support, magnesium to help relax the body. Nature-Made is made to care for you every day. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Are you drowning in IRS tax debt? Angela was. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $80,000. Felicia was having health problems, got behind on her taxes, interest and penalties were adding up. She called Civic Tax Relief and saved over $15,000. Civic Tax Relief is a professional tax negotiation firm that can protect you from the IRS. If you're getting collection letters, call Civic Tax Relief for a free consultation. They will go to work helping you discover all the relief programs you may qualify for free. James owed the IRS $37,000. Civic Tax Relief represented him against the IRS, and by the time everything was completed, he did not owe the IRS anything. If you are in trouble with the IRS, call Civic Tax Relief for your free consultation now. 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257. Get a free consultation and real tax relief. Call 800-200-2257. 800-200-2257.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is our regular contributor, Liz King, is with us this February 10th. And our very special guest, Barrett Holmes Bittner, a philosopher, author, educator, and journalist, and founder of the Sustainable Culture Lab. Barrett, how can we subscribe to your work?
Oh, well, you can go to my website, my Substack, The Reconstructionist. You just click to subscribe. It's real simple, and I'm trying to produce a story about every week or so to make sure that people get these good ideas. And so it's really that simple. Just go to The Reconstructionist, and it's thereconstructionist.com. And
it's on Substack.
Yep.
Okay, I don't know how to get to Substack, but yes, let's get to Substack.
The URL is just the-reconstructionist.com, and that just takes you to the website. And it's yeah.
Fantastic. Barrett does some extraordinary work, and everyone who can hear my voice should consider being a subscriber to The Reconstructionist. Very proud of Barrett's work. Barrett, I raised this question with Liz just before we came. And Liz, by the way, you and I need to get on Substack too and find us a way.
Clearly, that's where the action is. That's where the action is.
Get us 1,000 subscribers. Question. You have to have a vision, by definition, Barrett, of what a common people looks like. Liz talked about your children in that interaction, but you also suggest the amendment process as a way to bring the American people together. Your thoughts, Barrett?
Yeah, so what they look like is not, it's more about how they interact with each other, which is the most important thing. I think like a philosophical way of looking at it is like the Iroquois had this idea called the 7 generations principle. And that principle is when you make decisions, which is like it could be a big one or a small one, you need to think 7 generations into the past, but also 7 generations into the future. And this right here, as I think like a practice that makes a common people. So like when I interact with Liz, when my son interacts with her daughter, we're not just interacting to have fun for the day or the week or whatever. No, we should be engaging in a way that makes it that we could interact in a harmonious way for 7 generations. We're way after I'm gone and way after my son's gone, though they're still able to interact in a nice way. That's how you make a common people. So it's not anything about like what they look aesthetically or anything like that. It's the principles that guide how you interact with people. And I think this is when you're doing something good, you shouldn't envision that there's an end point where you get to the end and it looks like this and this is what perfection is. It's more like we're engaging in good practices, and the goal is to teach people in a way where you just continuously engage in those good practices over and over and over again. And I think that's more so what a common people looks like. And I think if you look at Reconstruction as an era, that was a very iterative era where they had, the Civil Rights Act of 1866, and then they had to make improvements, and there was the 14th Amendment, and then they had to make improvements from that, which was the 15th Amendment, and then you had the Justice Department, you had the Freedmen's Bureau. So there are all these iterative things about we're interacting with African Americans, we're finding out what Americans need to live a good, healthy life, and we're getting feedback, and we're interacting with trust, and then we're making the structures to do that. And that's, I think, the process of making a common people. We just only gave Reconstruction 12 years, and you need much more than that to continue those practices. And so that's kind of what it looks like. It's just how we interact with each other.
Liz, I'm going to leave you the word of hope in the final 3 minutes of the program, but I do want to say this. When I proposed 9 amendments to the Constitution in my book, A More Perfect Union, almost everyone who ever reads the book always say, oh, these are impossible. An amendment to the Constitution is impossible. It's not that the amendment is impossible. What's most important about the amendment, one at a time, is the journey to get there. The Founding Fathers put up a very high bar. It takes 2/3 of the Congress and 3/4 of the states, which means Liz's children have to get along and come to agreement with Barrett's children. It means across state lines, we have to agree that we're going to build a railroad system from one state all the way across the country, or runways, or have the same traffic lights, green, yellow, and red. We're going to have to agree on stop signs. We're going to have to reach a common understanding of all of the visuals of a system and not just assume that that comes naturally. It means that we've reached another level of spiritual development where we ultimately come together as a people. It's the struggle. It's not the end. It is the struggle to get to the end. So it may take 100 days, which one amendment to the Constitution took. It may take 200 years to amend the Constitution. I do think the right to public education of equal high quality and health care of equal high quality can come much sooner than that. But once we reach the human rights agreement that we do not have a right, that people are born into this world and they have a right not to be in slavery, the sooner we can get that added to the Constitution, the sooner we can move forward. With that said, I'm very grateful that Barrett Holmes Bittner has been our very special guest in this hour, and I am so looking forward to Liz King's final 3.5 minutes, her word of hope. Liz?
Thank you, Congressman. I've been thinking about your train analogy and the railroad. And in this country, we are all Americans, whether we live in Iowa or we live in Kansas or we live in Mississippi or we live in Puerto Rico. We are all Americans, and we are entitled to the protections of our Constitution. This is our Constitution, and this is our work in progress. Each of us has a role to play in creating a more perfect union. And we're seeing some people really stepping up and really showing up and really doing the work of coming together, of embracing their neighbor, no matter who their neighbor is, and in building together the sense of the common, building together what it means to be an American. And I am optimistic that we will all continue to move forward despite the fascist, racist opposition, the efforts to divide us and separate us one from another, to tell us that our worth and value is dependent on the subjugation of our neighbor, and that somehow we are stronger, we are weaker together than we are stronger together. And we know that we have to come together. We know that it is this unity that has protected us before, and it is this unity that will carry us through. And I am hopeful that today and tomorrow and every day and in every election and in every regulatory comment and in every letter to the editor, that we will continue to do our civic duty. We will show up and do the work of making ourselves a more perfect union. We will engage in the ritual of building a common America. We will do the ritual of ensuring that we together come together in e pluribus unum, because we have that potential. We've made a lot of mistakes together as a country, and we have the opportunity to build on those mistakes and build a more perfect union. And I'm optimistic that we will get there. I know that it's going to be challenging. I know that things are really, really, really hard right now, but they have been hard before and we have persevered. And as Barrett always reminds us, that the Reconstructionist era shows us what is possible. It was a revolution in this country, a revolution in the idea of who is part of us, who we are together, what we are entitled to. And we have seen that, we have built on that. And now as we have the opportunity to continue building together, to continue becoming the common we all deserve to be. So thank you, Congressman, for having us. Looking forward to the next conversation and looking forward to the work all of us do every day to build a more perfect union.
King's education career began as a middle school teacher. You can hear it in her voice in South Philadelphia. She holds a BA in government and religion. She did preach right here through the end of our program from Wesleyan University and an MS in elementary education from St. Joseph. So grateful to Brother Pittner and so grateful to Liz King for their participation in the show. You've been listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward on this tenacious February 10th on the J Lunch Club. Coming up next, Barbara Arnwine. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A status hearing is next in the Miami case where a black 17-year-old was fatally stabbed by his girlfriend. Attorney Melba Pearson, representing the family of Yakeem Lawler, is questioning why no trial date has been set more than a year later.
The defense counsel has everything that is in the prosecution's possession.
Prosecutors say 17-year-old Jahara Malik stabbed Lawler in December 2024. She claims it was an accident and has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter. A member of the San Francisco 49ers is recovering after a shooting. Black defensive lineman Keon White was shot in the ankle early Monday in downtown San Francisco and taken to a hospital. The team says he's receiving treatment and updates will be shared later. And HBCU, Tennessee State University, is hosting the 45th Annual Nashville Conference on African American History and Culture this Friday on its campus. The day-long event celebrates Black history and culture. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
In the new year, make one commitment. Don't let someone else's carelessness leave you paying the price. OPO Law has been protecting Los Angeles for nearly 50 years. So if you're injured this holiday season or at any time in 2026, go to opolaw.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
After the Lakers' 119-110 loss to Oklahoma City Monday night, LeBron said something that the Lakers organization really did not want to hear. LeBron said, "We are not a championship team." LeBron made the comment when a reporter asked him to compare the Lakers to OKC, the NBA's defending champions. There may have been added motivation for LeBron to make that statement after both teams played without their best player Monday night. OKC came to town without Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, last season's NBA MVP. The Lakers didn't have Luka Doncic, the NBA's leading scorer. LeBron saw how OKC handled their injury situation much better than the Lakers. OKC had 6 more free throw attempts, made 4 more three-pointers, and outscored the Lakers bench 54-35. Maybe LeBron should have spoken up before last week's trade deadline. It's too late now for the Lakers to do anything about not being a championship team. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, I'm Tavis Smiley. The tools to hold a meaningful